As someone who hates heat and humidity, I seriously question some of my major life choices, like moving to South Florida and signing up for yet another fall marathon. But after 2 years of living here, I've learned how to embrace the heat and humidity and really train smart throughout the summer. So in today's video, I'm sharing my top tips to survive summer running, coming from someone who has managed to PR in every single fall race despite training through an actual steam room in the summer months here in South Florida. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Juliana. I am a marathoner and startup founder of Juju's Foods. If you're interested in learning more about my journey, please subscribe to the channel. So without further ado, here's how I survive summer training in South Florida. Okay, so the first thing that I do to survive summer training is to remind myself that I need to adjust to the heat gradually. Even though I've been through several fall race training cycles now at this point, I still need that adjustment period every single year. And because it is so hot and humid in Florida, you never truly will 100% acclimate to the heat and humidity. You will always be much slower in a hot and humid environment. But still, I find that I need a little bit of a grace period with myself where I'm really not doing any type of speed workouts. I'm sometimes even stopping running and walking, and this is coming from a sub 3 hour marathoner. Like, I need to do that in this heat because it is just too much. And just to give a really quick example, for the Chicago Marathon in 2024, I actually trained at around 7:15 as my marathon pace, and my actual race pace was around 6:48. And I will tell you that I was dying during those summer training sessions, and I was totally fine during the race. I felt like I could have honestly pushed harder. So that's just a little anecdote for you guys. Okay, so living somewhere so hot and humid like Florida, I find that I can avoid most of the heat if I run when the sun is not out. So for me, I love to run in the morning, so I really need to get my butt up early so I can get out before the sun rises. So if you're interested in learning more about my 5 a.m. morning run routine, please make sure to check out my video linked here. So something that's kind of self-explanatory, but it goes hand in hand with this tip, is making sure that if you are waking up early to run at 5 a.m. or whenever it is so you can beat the sun, make sure that you are prioritizing your sleep. I personally struggle with this, and it's something that I want to do a much better job with, but getting to bed on time and making sure that you are getting a full 7 to 8 hours of sleep is so important for your mental, physical, emotional health and well-being. And for me, it really makes a difference when I get those 7 to 8 hours versus getting 6 or 6.5, which has seemed to be the theme lately, and I am not loving it. So make sure that you have a wonderful bedtime routine that makes you relaxed and ready to get to bed early so that you can make sure that you are waking up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or whenever you need to beat the worst of the sun and still feeling like you have energy. Oh yeah, sorry. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that I love my light up vest to run in the morning. I use this for safety and just for better visibility so people can see me on the road. Okay, so the next thing that I do is that I adjust my runs and my workouts significantly in multiple ways. The first thing is in terms of mileage. So I either decrease my mileage or hold my mileage from whatever my spring training cycle was. As runners, we get into this more is better mindset, and it's not always necessarily better to just keep doing more and more and more, whether it's more mileage, more workouts, more strength training. And I can cover this in a whole other topic in a different video because I feel like it's so important as runners to kind of just sometimes take a step back and understand when really more is just too much. But in terms of summer training in particular, more mileage is sometimes counterproductive, especially because the heat and humidity is already such a huge training stimulus. Adding more miles, at least I've found, just leads to injury and burnout and just general dread for my long run that I will need to survive in 85 degrees and 78 dew point with sun.
By the time I finish,
there is sun.
So the second thing that I do in terms of adjusting my workouts is reducing my paces significantly across the board. It is just simply not possible for me to do my marathon pace runs anywhere near what my actual marathon pace is in summer running. And you can totally experiment and see what works for you in terms of adjusting paces, mileage, etc. But for me, in terms of paces for my easy runs, I'm typically adjusting about 30 to 45 seconds per mile on my easy runs, sometimes even a minute on certain days. So that means if I'm running 8:15, 8:30 pace for easy recovery runs in the winter, I will be running 9:30 pace sometimes for my recovery runs in the summer. But I honestly just, again, go by effort, go by feel. If I'm not feeling great, I will run even slower. And then for my speed workouts, I typically end up going down 1 or 2 tiers pace-wise from what my actual prescribed pace is. So let's say that I have 6 by 800 meters at 5K pace. In summer running months, I will usually do those paces at 10K pace, sometimes even half marathon pace, and that's a struggle. I kid you not, last year for the Chicago Marathon when I was training, towards the end of my training cycle, my 6 by 800 meter repeats were literally slower than my actual marathon pace. And then the other thing that I do in terms of adjusting my workouts is I will take additional rest. So let's say a workout is 6 by 800 meters with 2 minutes rest. I will sometimes double the rest. The next thing that I do is that I do my key workouts maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks on the treadmill. And I find that this is really helpful because I'm able to really lock in on my paces on the treadmill in a way that I cannot do outside. So what I like about doing this too is that I can practice my race day nutrition, my outfit, I have access to a bathroom right there, all of that good stuff. So I find that it's really helpful to just be able to do that on the treadmill every 1 or 2 weeks for key workouts. And also a fun tidbit of information about me, I'm a literal psychopath and I like to read my Kindle on the treadmill, and I read it at like size 78 point font. So I'm like sitting there like sprinting and reading, but sometimes, I mean most of the time actually, because I had a little incident where I flew off the treadmill like a month after I joined Lifetime here in Palm Beach. It was really embarrassing. Anyway, so I try to focus when I'm doing my speed workouts just on getting that repeat done. So I'll take my Kindle off the treadmill, put it on the ground, hop back on, do my repeats, and then just for my warm up and cool down, I will read on the treadmill. Okay, so then my final tip about adjusting your workout significantly is that don't be afraid to adjust on the fly. I do this all the time. Sometimes, for whatever reason it is, even not during summer training. Like if I'm just feeling off one day, I will completely adjust my workouts just then and there. Like I'll start out my run, do a warm up, think that I'm going to be doing 12 miles at marathon pace. And then I start out and I'm like, you know what? I actually feel like this needs to be more like 3 by 3 miles at marathon pace with 1 mile easy in between. And sometimes that pace is even slower than what it should be. But this is why, again, I think it's so important to really focus on effort-based training sometimes so that you don't just focus on pace all the time and be upset if you're not hitting your pace. If you do want to be a little bit more scientific about all of this, there are tons of different calculators online that you can check out, and I'll link some down below in the description so you can take a look. But basically, you just plug in all of your different times and paces and types of workouts, and then it'll tell you how much to adjust based on your specific conditions wherever you are, based on the temperature, the humidity, etc. And there's also a table that I really like that basically you calculate a sum of your temperature plus your current dew point, and then it'll tell you how much to adjust percentage-wise from your paces. So I, at this point in my life, really go based off of feel and effort more than looking at all these specific calculators, but I did want to provide that in case you have trouble personally figuring out what pace should I be running given these difficult conditions, etc. So I'll link those down below in the description so you can check it out. Okay, so the next thing that I do in order to survive summer running is to really prioritize my hydration. And that means prioritizing hydration not just during runs, but around the clock. But during my runs, I make sure that I have access to water no matter how long my run is, because again, when you're running in an actual swamp, you do need access to water in order to stay hydrated and survive. And the other thing I do is that I also bring electrolytes with me, not just for my long runs, but honestly anything over an hour or so. So anything 8 miles and above, I have a handheld with about 18 ounces of fluid and 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So I personally love Mortal Hydration. I use that during my runs, and then throughout the day I hydrate with Element. So while I'm running, if it's anything over 8 miles, I'll have at least one super salty Mortal Hydration with 1,000 milligrams of sodium, and then when I come back, I'll have one Element. And then usually at night before I go to bed, I have another Element. So really I'm getting in around 2,000 or 3,000 milligrams of sodium per day on a normal run day. But if I'm doing a long run, I will have 2,000 or 3,000 milligrams of sodium during the run alone. And that doesn't include 1 or 2 elements that I might take throughout the day in addition to that. So almost 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams of sodium from my drinks alone, which is kind of insane. But I typically have pretty low blood pressure and sodium levels just from all of the blood work that I've done, and I go to the doctor pretty regularly. So that's what works for me. So find what works for you and talk to your healthcare provider and see that you're getting all the right amount of nutrition and everything that you need for your needs. And then what goes hand in hand with hydration is nutrition. So I could dedicate an entire YouTube channel to running nutrition, and I'm honestly probably not the most qualified person since I am not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but I would say for nutrition, you kind of got to find what works for you. What I found works for me is that when I'm training in the fall or in the winter, I can get away with going for a 6 to 8 mile run and not eating anything before. If I try to do the same thing in the summer, it's so much more miserable and awful. So I pretty much am eating a little small carb-rich snack every single day before my runs, no matter how long they are, because I just find that that gives me the energy and strength that I need to power through my run. And honestly, it is recommended to eat before your runs, no matter the length of them. So again, you kind of just have to find what works for you. But another thing that I have personally found is that I need to significantly up my fueling during the summer running months. So on a normal winter or fall day, where I'll be taking in maybe 1 gel every 30 or so minutes, during summer training, I have to take in a gel about every 20 minutes. So it's a lot more carbohydrate consumption, I personally find, and the heat does make it very hard to digest for me personally, but I kind of just take down the gels, keep slogging along, and I do feel better than when I try to push out to that 30-minute mark during my normal runs outside of the summer. And honestly, this is pretty consistent with what I do during race day. I will take a gel about every 20 or 25 minutes during race day, so I guess I'm just doing it in the summer, even though it is a lot more painful. But I think it's just the heat and humidity, And then the other thing in terms of nutrition is that I find that I recover best, and this is just a tip in general, not just for summer running, but when I consume a carb and protein-rich snack within 30 minutes of returning from my run, I find that that is the best to promote recovery and well-being and get me set up for the rest of my day and not feel like a zombie. During the summer, this is especially hard because I find that my appetite is extremely suppressed after every single run, just being out in that oppressive heat. So my solution is to have a smoothie. After I have this smoothie, it's typically just something to kind of get me through that initial hour and a half while I'm kind of getting my day started. So I'll have another meal within a couple hours of that. And it's usually yogurt and Juju's granola, of course, banana. I love fruit and sweet things, obviously, but without the added sugars. Okay, so the couple of final quick tips that I think are really instrumental in helping elevate my summer running is, it's super obvious, but I want to state one, which is to wear sunscreen. Even if you are running in the dark, make sure that you put a good quality sunscreen on your face that is completely sweat-proof, that it is waterproof, and just make sure to put that on your face, on your body, how you know your body and you know how quickly you burn, etc. So please put sunscreen on even if you head out when it's dark, because the sun will eventually rise and you want to make sure that you are prepared. And what I also do is lately, especially with my new haircut, is that I've been wearing a hat, and I feel like the hat collects all of the sweat from my body and just kind of pulls it to the tip of the cap and to the tip of my head. And it also provides shelter from the sun when it finally does come up. So I personally am now a brand new renowned fan of hats. So I would highly recommend wearing a hat as well. So hat and sunscreen. Okay, so you've made it to the end of the video, and these are the final couple of tips that I really do not hear people talking about often on the internet. I do hear about people talking about Body Glide and putting that on your body, but what I found most effective and honestly the cheapest option is, instead of using Body Glide, I just use Vaseline, and I put that on my body before every single run. So if you are someone that is prone to chafing, I think if you have a body and you run, you are prone to chafing. So make sure that those areas that you have that are likely to burn during the run, that you're putting Vaseline before every single run in the summer. So I have specific areas that I target, my feet, my toes, anywhere that my clothing is in contact with my skin, literally, I will just take that huge pot of Vaseline and I will just lather it all over my body, because there's nothing worse than being in the hot, humid, searing sun and then also having a burn on your inner thigh from all of the sweat and heat and humidity. So I love to use Vaseline. Okay, so my final tip is, if you are feeling like you're overheating during a run and you want to pour cold water on your head, or you want to cool yourself off in the most efficient way possible, there's something that is called your glabrous regions. And so these are regions in your body where you don't have any hair. It's the palms of your hands, the bottoms of your feet, and then also areas of your cheek where you don't have any hair. So this is a tip that I learned from Dr. Andrew Huberman and his Huberman Lab podcast.
Which is, there are 3 locations on your body that are far better at passing heat out of the body and bringing cool into the body, such that you can heat up or cool your body everywhere very quickly. Those 3 areas are your face, the palms of your hands, and the bottoms of your feet. Now, the skin on your hands and on the bottoms of your feet, and to some extent on your face, are called glabrous skin. And what's special about those areas of your body and the glabrous skin is that the arrangement of vasculature, of blood vessels, capillaries, and arteries that serve those regions is very different than it is elsewhere in your body.
So I'm going to link that clip down below, and I will link the timestamp for you to watch it. So if you're out running and you feel like you're very overheated and you're hot and you want to, cool yourself off very quickly, like a lot of people tend to just dump water on their head, ice cold water on their head. They tend to put an ice pack on the back of their neck or in their sports bra or something like that. The best and most efficient thing that you could do is, obviously when you're out running, it's pretty difficult to try to put ice in your shoes, but maybe holding ice cubes or putting ice cubes on your cheeks. So I've literally done this during long runs. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of a run and I'll go into like a McDonald's or something to get more ice and water in my water bottle. So I will take the ice cubes from McDonald's. I still do put some in my sports bra, but I also will just like put ice cubes on my cheeks for a second, and then I'll just grab ice cubes in my hands and just like walk out of that McDonald's looking at like an absolute psychopath, but it works. So I would highly recommend giving that a shot and see how that works for you. Okay, so the final thing that I do to survive summer running is that I make it as fun as possible. I love running so much. It is such a big part of who I am and such a big part of my life. But even for me, summer training can be seriously miserable. So here are a few things that I do personally that I think just help me kind of spark some joy for running when honestly, many days I'm out there and I feel like I hate the world because of the weather. So the first thing that I do is that I try to run with friends at least 2 or 3 times a week. The second thing is I will try to be more intentional about what I'm listening to during my runs. So I'll pick a really good podcast, an audiobook, pick some new music, and just put in my headphones and kind of lock into something that's really interesting to me. And then the third thing is that I will try to switch up my running routes. If I do this, I do make sure to bring my little running backpack that has extra water in it in case I don't have access to a water fountain, but I will plan out different routes. And then also I live pretty close to the ocean, so sometimes I will plan it out so I drive and I park somewhere near the beach so I can run in and jump in for a quick dip. You don't even need to live anywhere close to a beach or anything like that, but maybe just having some sort of ritual that you look forward to, or even just 5 or 10 minutes that you give yourself to enjoy something that you normally can't do in the winter, I find just makes something nice to look forward to. And then the final thing in terms of fun things that I do to survive summer training is that I do a lot of visualization during my run. So as I'm suffering through the pain, sweat, and tears, I visualize what my fall marathon race will feel like when, seemingly out of nowhere, all of the repeats that I've been able to do at barely my marathon pace for my 800 meter repeats, I can suddenly do at marathon pace. Okay, so that concludes what I personally do to survive summer running in South Florida. If you like this video and you want to follow along with my marathon journey and my entrepreneurial journey growing Juju's Foods, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.